Welcome to NFL Daily, where we're always in competition for a starting job. I'm Gregg Rosenthal here in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio alongside my friends Jourdan Rodrigue of The Athletic and Colleen Wolfe.
Hello. So much tampering has been going on. Legal.
We don't call it legal tampering anymore. It's just the negotiating period.
I like legal tampering.
I think a few years ago there was an edict. Don't call it legal tampering anymore.
I missed that.
Because these deals are done, and
Good start.
it just feels like
Colleen loves her job.
Somehow I missed that. Whatever.
I don't
Happy
wanna-
legal tampering period.
I don't want to say it feels like you guys got the leftovers a little bit, but man, like this market moved fast.
It didn't happen like this last year, right? Like it wasn't. I feel like the first day of the window was kind of quiet because I think I was doing the show and we're like, this is not a frenzy. Where's our frenzy?
That might have been the first official day, which will be Wednesday.
Yeah.
And you're right. There's not much left at that point probably to talk about. If just to give an overall view of it in terms of the top 101, my free agency, there's only one player left from the top 20.
Oh my God.
There's only 14 left from the top 50, and there's only 40 left overall. So like most of from the entire 101. So the list is mostly gone, but I think we could still have some big trades throughout the week. So obviously keep listening to this space. And even if they're not all the biggest names, I think we got some good ones today, and we're going to cook up some spicy meatballs in terms of your takes later.
Are you, in fact, referring to the Gregg Rosenthal top 101 free agency list supported and endorsed by Drew Rosenthal?
That's right.
Oh.
The season is almost ending. This is it. The week of free agency is almost ending, and I'm really glad we have Jourdan, who's been covering, obviously, the Rams for The Athletic. It's very busy, and I wanted to make sure we didn't lose Colleen too far to the offseason, because according to like her Instagram, she's a lot of painting going on, like some hobbies, which is great. You also were doing a deep cleaning on Monday, and I'm thinking this is the busiest free agency day. I'm glad she's on the schedule for tomorrow, because otherwise she's going to be too deep into the deep cleaning.
I will clarify. Yesterday, I did not do any deep cleaning. The only deep cleaning I did was look at the box that had a deep cleaner in it, and I was wondering if I should return it or not. And to have the people say what to do. I needed that decision made.
Did you keep it?
I think I'm going to keep it. It's like 60% keep.
Okay, 60% G, 60% keep. We do have some news, and I'm glad that we got some Danny Dimes news. That was the reference I'm making off the top of the show, is that there's going to be a quarterback competition with your favorite team, Colleen, the Colts, except for the Philadelphia Eagles. More on the Eagles in a second, too. But, kind of your second team, the Indianapolis Colts, who you always overrate every year. Danny Dimes chose the Colts, getting $13 million guaranteed, probably get about another $1 million with a roster bonus, so $14 million, and they say he is competing with Anthony Richardson for the starting job. Does this make you feel any better about the 2025 Colts?
Well, last year they brought in Joe Flacco, and now they're bringing in Daniel Jones. So I'm not sure why I overrate the Colts every year, but I'm sure it's going to happen. And I don't know if he has a real chance of beating out Anthony Richardson. I don't know if the organization is really seriously thinking of moving on from Anthony Richardson, but I think that there is more of an opportunity there for Daniel Jones to be a starter than there was in Minnesota. So it wasn't so much about the money. It was more about the opportunity.
I wonder two major things about this. There's some skepticism locally in that market that the Colts are actually being serious about like having a quarterback competition, like that they were just maybe talking a big game. Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen were maybe just talking a big game, less so actually believing, just to sort of get the competitive juices flowing a little bit versus actually installing one. But there also is chatter coming out of that market locally that Daniel Jones picked that team because he believes he can compete for the starting job. So the second thing I wonder is, if I'm Anthony Richardson, do I ask for a trade? If I'm the Colts, do I trade him now early on? Because if he does get beat by Daniel Jones in a quarterback competition, trade value is gone.
There was a report from
I'm just thinking of the possible places he could go to. And
So
what
I can fix him.
There was a report from NFL Daily Guest. That's how Tom Pelissero is best known now. From a couple weeks ago. Immediately, that his agent says no plans to seek a trade, which is one of those reports. I was like, wait, I didn't know that was a thing.
That tells me, though, that perhaps this is something that could have been discussed in the Colts building. If they're that quick to say we're not going to ask for it, the Colts have to do it if they want to do it. Like, it's them, not us.
Right. There's a lot here. I think he is absolutely in an open competition.
Yeah.
Because the money tells you he is. Joe Flacco got, $2 million or something. They're paying him $14 million. Now, it's not even Justin Fields money. It's somewhere between a starter and a backup money. It's exactly where it's a 1B option type of money. But that shows he has a chance. And the reason I think he has a chance to win the job is because 5 different national reporters all keep pushing it this way. Mike Silver, your colleague at The Athletic, posited that maybe Daniel Jones is even the favorite. I now combine that with James Boyd, who's also your colleague at The Athletic, a good local reporter. He had a really good article. If you're into the Colts, Colleen, I would suggest you read from
let me write this down.
A week and a half ago. And he wondered if this whole idea of bringing these 3 guys back for another year, Steichen, Richardson, and Ballard, these are supposed to be the 3 pillars of the organization, whether there's and the idea of bringing them back, like if we're going to bring them back, we're going to bring them all back together and we're going to make this work, that there might be some fraying here, that there's different agendas going on with different people. I don't know how exactly it would work, but it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of people who think Daniel Jones could win the starting job are hearing from the front office. And then there's Anthony Richardson. Pat McAfee's talking about how he's not a hard worker. He flat out said it on Tuesday that if people knew his work habits, that they wouldn't think he would win this job. And there's this like little hints in the media that this is supposed to make him work harder. Or this is supposed to, put some pressure on him. And so it's all bad because to me, it talks about it points out maybe a front office and a coaching staff, especially, that aren't on the same page. That's not good.
Yeah, and this is when he was a prospect, it was a guy that needed to go to a team that had patience. And I mean, this is sort of what they were in store for. They didn't know what he was going to be, and now they're learning, and here we are.
That's kind of the issue I take with it too. The entire thing is once people's butts get tight, they're in fear of losing their job and all this. It's all of these platitudes that were offered when they drafted him and understood that he was going to take some time, and then had the injury that really truncated what he was able to do biomechanically in his first off season. This is. Everything changes. The tone shifts. All of a sudden it goes from, we know that it's going to take some time and we're going to be patient with him. And it goes immediately into, okay, we need to light a fire under him. And we need to do, those are the things that I think bother me about the situation is over the top of all of this are 2 people who are worried about their jobs, and that's Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen. And when that happens, you see the messaging shift faster than ever. And on the point of Chris Ballard, I think that, again, if all of this is coming out there and all of this is, there's a potential danger of Daniel Jones coming in and taking Anthony Richardson's job. If you're seeing this starting to happen, you got to trade him. You got to trade him before it becomes clear that Daniel Jones, if this happens, that Daniel Jones takes his job. Because otherwise, A, you already have made it clear that you're probably not going to extend your first round pick, your top 5 pick. And B, you are never going to get higher trade value than someone who comes in and says, no, I can actually be the one to fix Anthony
Unless you wait until the very end and there's an injury at the position in training camp, and then you can come and swoop in and maybe get a little better value too. But it's like now or wait until the very end.
I mean, Anthony Richardson is still only 22 years old. I mean, is he younger than Cam Ward? I would imagine he is. Actually, they're born the same month, so the same age as Cam Ward. Much younger, obviously, than Bo Nix and some other prospects that have come out. So he's still young. I don't like that McAfee is putting it out there that, is he showing up to team meetings on time and work habits. That said, he might be right on that Richardson does have some growing up to do professionally. I think your point about the offseason is really great because he wasn't able to practice last offseason too. And that gets to the final part of this. We haven't really talked about Jones too much. This is not the Daniel Jones that I was kind of high on in 2022 and 2021. I always would say, like, Daniel Jones is right around the Dalton line. Like, actually, if you put a decent situation around him, he's a mid-level quarterback. I don't think he's as bad as people think. And then he had that one good year where he was better than certainly, or he wasn't as good as the Giants thought when they gave him all that contract. But he's not that guy. He just had a major shoulder surgery, and when he threw the ball last year, it didn't go very far. Like, it went really slow.
It's generous.
And then, and everyone seems to have forgotten, like, I haven't seen this mentioned in anything with Daniel Jones. Okay, that, number one. And number two, he had recurring neck injuries that people thought would end his career, like, multiple times. So this is not a guy that I trust to stay healthy or that necessarily is going to be great competition if Richardson shows up and plays well. And then the last little bit of that is the Vikings didn't keep him. And I know the Vikings probably didn't want to extend too much money to Daniel Jones when it's going to be J.J. McCarthy's job, but they did have him in the building. They didn't make him the backup quarterback last year when they could have during the playoffs. And if they really wanted, they could have paid Daniel Jones a little more money. Seeing this salary, by the way, it made me wonder, did they offer about what Sam Darnold made for them last year, which would have been about $11 million. This is $3 million more than that. You know, take it or leave it, and he decided to leave.
Yeah, and listen, I'm actually not surprised that he wasn't their backup when he's making a transition mid-season into an offense that, like, literally constructs the schematic language, like, layer by layer by layer through the course of an entire offseason. Like, I'm not surprised by that. But I do think that this was a choice that Daniel Jones had the ability to make. That's kind of what it sort of sounds like, the tea leaves and some of the reporting that's out there. And so he clearly went to a place where he believes he could start. Now, whether it's J.J. McCarthy's team moving forward, or there's, you know, again, my colleague, Mike Silver, has been buzzing a little bit about the Vikings talking about Aaron Rodgers and considering Aaron Rodgers. So if I'm Daniel Jones, I'm not going to try to go beat the guy that they're going to bring in who's like a future Hall of Famer and probably going to be like their designated bridge for the next year. I'm going to go where I believe I can really compete to start. And that's what I think is like subtly so key about this. He clearly believes he has a shot at that job, right?
Oh, he does. Yeah. I do too. I mean, I believe that there are members of the organization that are down on Anthony Richardson. Now, whether that's Shane Steichen or not, we'll find out. The one thing that does make sense is they actually are kind of similar. Jones and Richardson, not in a great way. Like, they hold on to the ball too long. I think it takes them too long to kind of go through their progressions. Obviously, Richardson is a better athlete, but they're both really great, like, straight line runners. You can kind of make the same offense for the two of them. So in that way, they actually make a little sense together. I thought Shane Steichen was a nice offense potentially for Daniel Jones. I don't know if he has the processing to exist in the KOC system, and we won't ever find out. Let's go to our next item. The Eagles and Howie saying goodbye to another Super Bowl champion, trading Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and a 6th-round pick in 2026 to the Texans for guard Kenyon Green and a 5th-round pick. These two teams, by the way, the Eagles and the Texans, have made 6 trades over the last couple of years. So they just like trading with each other. Surprising, although not as surprising because Gardner-Johnson sent a cryptic tweet out a couple days ago that was like, I thought they'd love me. Everyone was like,
no.
Oh, what does that mean? Is he getting cut? And no, instead he's getting
not
traded.
CJGJ. Come on. I immediately had all of these text messages from like family members that were like, what are they doing? No, why? He's the heart and soul of the defense. And they're not wrong about that. And we, oh my God.
It's totally fine. If you said it for the Colts,
Respect
I'd be worried.
You guys
but
just won the
it's
Super
fine
Bowl.
for the Eagles.
Do what you want.
Okay, fine. But the Eagles just got him back last year. So I thought, oh, this is wonderful. He's going to be back. And he kind of provided that juice that the Eagles defense didn't have in 2023. He filled that void. And I just I hate it because I love him and I thought that he would stay on that 3-year deal and now he's gone. However, I do like that Howie is kind of planning in case Mekhi Becton doesn't come back. He's getting some depth on that O-line. So that's sort of the thinking there, I guess.
Yeah, Kenyon Green, very similar profile in a way to Becton, which is a 1st-round pick that was a disappointment in his first spot and seeing if they can put him in Stoutland University, Jeff Stoutland. Their
such a
offensive line
compliment
coach.
to Jeff Stoutland. Not that he needs any more praise. I mean, we should praise him at every chance we get. He's amazing. But it's such a testament to their belief and their faith that you can come and overhaul this guy and like develop this guy, get him on the right track, and he could potentially be a long-term option depending on what happens with Mekhi Becton. I feel like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and the Eagles have like one of those like on again, off again.
Yes.
Like ultimately,
cold.
Like ultimately, they're gonna end up together. You know, like it is destined to be so. But there's gonna be a lot of bumps in the middle. You know, she said this, he said.
Or they're
I was
just good for
thinking-
like quick, passionate,
that's-
times together. A little like Affleck, J-Lo, but ultimately like
it's not gonna end.
Okay,
in
I
anything
really was
serious.
gonna say Affleck, J-Lo.
Yeah.
Well, I also thought, and I love Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as a player. I love watching him. I love everything he's all about. He annoys the hell out of opponents.
He does.
Like no one annoys opponents.
That's why I love him.
I think it's okay, based on some of the reporting we've seen out there, to surmise that he might annoy the hell out of the people he works with too, at least some of them. And maybe it's just a lot to deal with. He is a really good player who is now changing teams for the 4th or 5th straight year. So at some point it might be like, well, it's not about the team, it might be you.
He also always wants a contract. Like
It might
so
be.
maybe,
Does he want a new one? Yeah,
maybe
Yeah.
he wanted a
Get your
New York
money.
deal.
Maybe
Because
that
that's
was
the
it.
thing.
Although he is under contract for 2 years, like $20 million more.
Right.
Kenyon Green, by the way, is paid very little money this year, but he's a first-round pick, so they'll have the option to pick up his first, year option, but 5th year option. But they probably won't be. They have to make that decision in a month.
They could. I mean, it'll be cheap, so they could. Greg, the entire time you were talking, I thought of one of my favorite drops of all time. Can you imagine living with me?
Oh, I think about that many times a month. Like, and my Emeka brings it up. It just
It's a good
like
one.
people don't know what it's like.
It seems
to live
like you
with
really have a psychic connection with what Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
Yes,
is feeling.
I do like a little instigator guy. By the way,
Hey,
the,
with Derek Stingley.
the Eagles
like it.
moved down in the draft to trade him, so that part of it was weird. I was with this trade.
Can you imagine living with me?
Yes.
With this trade and then the Laramie Tunsil trade, and if you kind of look at the Texans overall, they also cut Shaq Mason over the weekend. That's something we didn't hit here, so they've gotten rid of 3 offensive linemen. They did sign one on Tuesday, like in Tomlinson, but it came back to Seth Payne. I've talked about. He's our Texans correspondent, and we were texting back and forth last night or this morning about Tunsil, and he says DeMeco Ryans. All he talks about is Swarm. Have you guys heard about Swarm?
I think I've heard Seth talk about Swarm.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm a Seth head.
it's DeMeco Ryans' team motto. That they have to live their lives by: special work ethic and relentless mindset. That adds up to Swarm. And the way DeMeco Ryans talks about Swarm, like he's a true believer. It's not just something they put up on the wall. It is everything that they are trying to be about. And I don't know if Laramie Tunsil had that Swarm. You know what I mean? He was a great player, but even CJ Stroud in like a podcast interview was kind of joked around about like, well, Tunsil's a veteran. He won't do anything extra at practice. Like that's kind of who he is. He's accomplished everything in his career. He's not about that Swarm. You know who's about that Swarm?
Who?
CJ GJ.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
so I think it's all about the Swarm.
Yeah.
Swarm and CJGJ, 2 acronyms coming together.
Oh, I love that. It's beautiful. He fits perfectly with DeMeco Ryans then.
I kind of think so. That secondary is nasty. Talk
Yes.
about an identity. I mean, the Eagles secondary is still pretty awesome. That's why you can trade Gardner-Johnson and totally be fine. Honestly, they're great in the secondary still. But that is a great one for Houston. By the way, Aaron Wilson, my old coworker back at Pro Football Talk, just for a couple months there, announced or reported Titus Howard will be their left tackle, who's been on the roster and gets paid a lot of money. So it's Titus Howard at left tackle, Blake Fisher at right tackle. Let's move on to the rest of the signings of the day. Jevon Holland got 3 years, $45 million from the Giants, $30 million guaranteed. We've seen a similar contract for a lot of safeties. I think that's a disappointing contract for Jevon Holland. I think, according to reports, he turned down more than that from the Dolphins a year ago. So sometimes, betting on yourself does not work.
Yeah.
They also signed an edge, Chauncey Golston, for 3 years and $19.5 million. How about the Giants?
The Giants.
Rebuilding the secondary a little bit.
Well, bringing in Jevon Holland, that's the biggest move for them, I feel like, of free agency so far. And Holland is a good safety, and he has good leadership qualities, too. He was a team captain for 3 years in Miami. But I was looking at the fact that he's had 4 different defensive coordinators in 4 years, so now it'll be 5 and 5.
Wow.
Brian Flores, when he was the play caller, the head coach, Josh Boyer, Vic Fangio, Anthony Weaver, and now Shane Bowen will be his 5th. So he hasn't had any type of consistency or a chance to really get into a rhythm in the system.
Yeah, I really like this. He doesn't turn 25 for, I think, a couple months still. So even though he is a leader, he's been a team captain 3 times, like you mentioned, Colleen, he's a young leader. And I think that group needs it. Last year, they were hot and cold and there was some reporting coming out of some of the issues they had with, I believe his name is Deontay Banks, if I'm incorrect on that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so they were having some issues with him just in terms of inconsistency, and then he was a disappointment, I think, for them. And so getting somebody with Jevon Holland's leadership ability, but also someone who can impact all 3 levels of the defense, I think is really important.
Also a guy who is smart enough to team up with our coworker, Cam Wolfe, for a podcast, the Breaking House Rules podcast, hosted by Cam Wolfe and Jevon Holland. I don't know if that's continuing with him moving, because they're both like Miami guys. They go golfing together. I follow you on Instagram, Cam. He's always got the good.
Cam has an awesome Instagram
good captions. It's very good. So good on Jevon Holland. Kind of an up and down year though. Locally, people thought maybe he wasn't like fighting through the injury he had. He seemed to be more of a Vic Fangio guy, which was rare on that defense than he was playing as well under Anthony Weaver. And then just one little note that I found really interesting. I just like to button these things up. Paulson Adebo signed a 3-year, $30 million contract, or agreed to one, on Monday. Former Saints cornerback. Nice deal, I thought, for the Giants. And that's according to his agents, which you would think would be a good source. They put out that money. He ended up signing, according to Spot Rack, a 3-year, $54 million contract with almost $38 million guaranteed. He ended up getting paid just as much as Carlton Davis and DJ Reed at the top of this market. And I don't know what happened, but what I can guess happened is that some other teams saw that contract get put out on Twitter, and they were like, yo, we could pay a lot more than that. And then the Giants were like, oh no, like we better match that.
That's a smart agent.
Yeah, I don't even know if that's intentional at that point, because you wouldn't be tweeting it out. But either way, it worked out for him.
What if what actually, I think that would be a savvy and smart thing to do. What if what actually happened is in the text exchanging information, someone just like missed a comma or like
a clerical error?
That probably is not what happened, but you're more likely on that, Greg. But I would love
it. Does happen. I think that's what happened with Milton Williams. Is his agreement got announced with the Panthers, and the Patriots probably came and were like, hey, we can do more than that.
Everything's signed. Anything could happen.
We mentioned on
good life lesson
on Monday's show with Patrick how the 49ers keep losing players, and they released Leonard Floyd on Monday. Not a surprise there, but it did inspire a Micah Parsons tweet that I just wanted to kind of throw out to the crowd here. And he was responding to a tweet about the 49ers really gutting themselves from our friend Clarence Hill over in Dallas. And Parsons said, no more rookie QB, LOL. Welcome to reality. And my immediate thought to that was, well, yeah, welcome to reality for some teams. I mean, there were 2 teams that are paying quarterbacks a lot of money that have won a lot of games that were in the Super Bowl. Like, I don't need to hear this excuse anymore. You think the Bills are gutting players that they don't want to? Like, do you think the Chiefs are spending tons of money? The Eagles are spending tons of money.
The Eagles, I think, are a great example for this. It's interesting. I don't think they're shedding players necessarily for the sake of the quarterback contract. Just sort of assessing and seeing patterns emerge up there, patterns that we've seen in very recent years with other teams. To me, it looks like they're trying to go for a sprint rebuild. Like they're going to keep a couple of pillars or weight-bearing walls, as we've heard in the past, and they're going to basically agree with those players that they're going to have to lift the floor of that roster, and they're going to go young at different positions. And I think they're going to bargain hard or negotiate hard with Brock Purdy and his camp on this.
It's, you know what, it's so sad that San Francisco, the organization, is ending my favorite tandem, which is Claire Kittle and Kristen Juszczyk.
Oh, that's right.
I do love their friendship. Their friendship is nice.
Yeah.
I wonder if he could come back, because the reports are that he didn't want to take a pay cut for a second straight year, and so they released him, Kyle Juszczyk. But ultimately, I suspect the 49ers would be happy to employ him, and
sure.
maybe they still will offer a better deal than anyone else, but maybe someone will want in on Juszczyk. So just hoping that could stay together. And our producer Eric tells me just 10 minutes ago, Rap Sheet reporting the Falcons are going to sign Leonard Floyd to a 1-year, $10 million contract. I mean, Leonard Floyd just keeps cashing those checks.
He does.
Okay, so he is like the ultimate mercenary player though, because he'll sign for like a year and $10 million. He'll play through double ankle and knee injuries, and he'll still have like 6 or more sacks. Like I know it was not the best season for him this last season.
No, they're eating dead money to get rid of him.
But it wasn't the best season for him last season. But in a system he likes, in a system he knows, reunited with Raheem Morris. I've seen Leonard Floyd play through a lot of stuff and somehow just keep churning and keep going. So I think that dude's going to go till the wheels fall off.
All right, we're going to fly through the rest of these. The Falcons, while we're talking them, signed former Raiders linebacker Devon Diablo, 2 years, $14 million. Re-signed Mike Hughes, who is a solid enough cornerback for them, 3 years, $18 million. We've quickly gotten past the first wave of free agency. These are definitely second wave types of deals in terms of the money. The Jets gave Andre Sisco $10 million. I thought I'd point that out because I just feel like the Jets have had a weird one. I don't know if I'm like gonna criticize it, but they've just had kind of an odd free agency period.
You know what? I'm happy for him because I feel like he hit rock bottom week 6 last year when he called out his own team and said, we had a lot of quit from the players out there. When the Jags lost in such an embarrassing way to the Bears in London, that was rock bottom for him. So that's great.
Good job. Good research right there. The Panthers cut Miles Sanders, and I left it open-ended on Monday's show whether they were going to finish that deal with Travell Wharton, who I really liked as a free agent, and they did. So that is agreed to. They were trying to sign Milton Williams, and we talked about this on this show with Ollie Connolly, that he thought maybe there isn't that huge of a gap between Milton Williams and Travell Wharton, that they were kind of two similar type of free agents. And so we saw the final numbers for Milton Williams. It was ultimately like a 2-year, $51 million contract, fully guaranteed their first 2 years in New England, $25 a year. And they signed Travell Wharton in Carolina, 2 years, $30 million guaranteed. So $20 million less, maybe not that huge of a difference between those two guys. I kind of like what Carolina did there.
I like their defensive line in general now. It's Bobby Brown, Derek Brown, Travell Wharton. They obviously are going to be looking for pass rush help in the draft as well, it seems like. I like what they've been doing.
Yep, they're building up front. They're spending that money, but I think they do have a line where they're trying not to go too crazy with some guys. And overall, I think it's been meat and potatoes, but it's been good. Just a couple other interesting signings from Tuesday. Kevontae Turpin, one of the best special teamers in the NFL, goes back to the Cowboys, who also signed a former Dolphins guard, Robert Jones. Supposedly, they're calling it the largest special teams player contract in NFL history, $18 million. But Turpin's not a pure special teamer. I don't know. He plays a little wide receiver. Browns signed Joe Tryon-Yoshenka for 1 year, $4.8 million. The Browns, it's been quiet over there. We'll see. The Ravens bring back Patrick Ricard. That is always making me feel better. And then the Titans, just some punter news. I thought this was interesting. They didn't tender Ryan Stonehouse, which nobody cares about outside of Tennessee and any team looking for a freaking punter. Because I don't know.
Our All-Pro on our.
I don't know if I've ever seen a punter when he punts the ball goes any further than it does with Ryan Stonehouse. I mean, that dude has a bazooka on his leg, so I think that's exciting for all the punter needy teams out there.
Gregg Rosenthal, football guy.
Yeah, I think too. So every time I wouldn't watch a lot of Titans games this year, but to prepare for this show and for other shows, it's just like this is sometimes you have to watch the Titans this year. And every time he punted the ball, I would go Stonehouse.
Now I'm going to do that.
Yes. Good luck. You will never get it out of your head now.
Make that a drop for when we talk all the Ryan Stonehouse highlights throughout the next season. Let's take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and I'm going to hear some spicy meatballs, what you guys were cooking up.
Stonehouse.
Back on NFL Daily. We're serving spicy meatballs. I just hadn't heard your guys' takes or thoughts of anything that happened over the weekend. A lot of big news, or Monday. So I just asked you guys, because I do want to hear, what kind of spicy meatball do you have to serve up as a take from the last few days? Let's start with Jourdan.
Well, I loved everything how the Vikings approached free agency.
Ooh, okay.
Actually, that's my spicy meatball, my hot take from what's going on so far. I love that they did not tag Sam Darnold or extend him. I love that they reallocated all of that money into like their really legitimate scheme fits, like Byron Murphy, who really thrives in that Brian Flores defense and comes alive because of their pressure design and how he can cover to complement that. A lot of his plays that he made on the ball this year were as a result of really understanding what they were trying to do with the pressure way up in front of him. And then they took the rest of that money and they were like spending on the trenches. Jonathan Allen, 3 years, $60 million. Jevon Hargrave, after he's released on Wednesday. Guard Will Fries, 5 years, $88 million. Center Ryan Kelly, 2 years, $18 million. Like, I like that they're doing this. I like how Kwesi's cooking right now.
Yes, some of those moves were from Tuesday, and so we saved them for the spicy portion. But they were the most active team really this morning on the West Coast at least. Allen only gets 21 guaranteed, Jonathan Allen, and so that's more of a short-term 2-year type of deal. A guy who's really been good. Jevon Hargrave is supposed to join the team when these rules are weird. He's literally still on the 49ers. And
it's a clerical thing.
Yeah. And they're quote closing in on Jevon Hargrave, but Tom Pelissero essentially says it's happening. And even the base salary of Jonathan Allen is $54 million. So a lot of these they throw the incentives in there at first, and then that Will Fries. I'll be curious to see the actual money in that one. But either way, I had him ranked in the top 25, one of the better guards that could have been available, and is making big time money. And so you improve your interior lines on both sides, like that's going to make you better.
Exactly. That's the point I was going to make. That they focused on getting stronger
Gregg.
Up the middle. Their defense was good, but obviously they didn't do a great job of generating an interior pass rush at all. And then for the offensive line, building things up for J.J. McCarthy. Just go back to the Vikings-Rams wildcard game. That pass protection was brutal. Now, a lot of that is also on Sam Darnold, but he got sacked 9 times.
Mm-hmm.
You think how loaded their defense is right now? Because it's not like this is a defense that you felt needed a lot. And yet, they did lack a little bit of interior push and difference-making players. And now they add that to a group that's already pretty loaded. They signed Isaiah Rodgers on the cheap while also giving Byron Murphy the money he deserves. They had to let Cam Bynum walk, but they have 2 good players. We haven't heard anything about Harrison Smith, so at this point, I think he's back with the team. There was some question about whether he would retire. Stephon Gilmore's still a free agent, but yeah, a good couple days, because they've been talking about how bad their interior offensive line has been for years.
I just like how they took a bunch of money, a pool of money that they probably should not have spent on a player they could have potentially traded later in the year, and reallocated it into 5 different players in some of the contract structures. And I really appreciate that type of thinking where it's like you're agile. You're not specifically so married down the road to this one plan that may or may not work, especially for someone who was considered a tradable asset. And you then reallocated it into multiple players that you know work within your system and that you know are a value add, either taking an A defense and turning it into an A+ defense, or taking a medium to mediocre to sometimes bad offensive line, particularly interior, and really giving it some juice.
Yeah, and they bring back Aaron Jones, and maybe they think, and I think this makes sense, that his numbers would have looked a lot better with a little better offensive line play up front, although he looked great for most of the year.
Also, hey, getting these players, particularly guard center, kind of tells me that they're going to, maybe actually build in some shorter and intermediate pass concepts into this offense.
Which is not Sam Darnold's strength.
Nope. So that sort of tells me that. Yeah.
He's good throwing it deep, but not so much over the middle. All right, give me a spicy meatball.
Okay, well, this is, first of all, I love meatballs. You can put them on a salad and make it healthy if you want. You can do all sorts of stuff with meatballs.
Do you make good meatballs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, do you?
No. I mean, I'm just saying, I didn't know if that's in your bag or what. Is there like a Colleen specialty meatball?
You know what? I do like a meatloaf too.
So do I.
Do you make a good meatloaf, Greg?
I don't make anything good.
I've never made a meatloaf.
Only bad.
Okay, so anyway, this is more of a like Serrano style pepper. which is green, and it's fitting because it's Justin Fields and the Jets. They talked him out of going to Pittsburgh because I'm sure Pittsburgh, they wanted him to come back, and it probably didn't take too many words for them to talk him out of coming to New York. But just the idea that he could tell the Steelers, nah, I'd rather play for the Jets. You already chose Russell Wilson over me when we were winning.
Yep.
And it just feels like a chef kiss if Aaron Rodgers ends up going to Pittsburgh. I mean, the swap there, I love it. Justin Fields is 15 years younger than Rodgers, and it's relatively low money for a starter, 2 years. If it doesn't work out, it's not that big of a deal.
You know what, too, I love about Justin Fields, and you heard this from all of his teammates last year as well, even when the shuffling was happening at the quarterback position in Pittsburgh. He's so low maintenance. His teammates love him. What a breath of fresh air going into the Jets building where they've sort of just been all clenched up around Rodgers for the last 2 years. I really like that.
Yeah, especially
I really
with Aaron
like
Glenn.
that. Yes.
Because Aaron Glenn is like that as well. Like, everybody, it's going to be different here, the culture change. And I really hope that is the case because that would fit with all the personality and all the things that they're trying to do.
And I think they're looking at players and teams and team building a little differently. And so I thought they were having a weird one, but then again, like a lot of the Lions decisions early on in their run were like, they drafted him, and it worked out pretty well. So I'm going to trust the process with Aaron Glenn. When I said a weird one, like Brandon Stevens was kind of an odd contract. Andre Cisco, they gave Jamian Sherwood a lot of money. I like that move by then. I'm with you. That is a lot of fun. The Fields redemption tour. I am going to talk for my spicy meatball about the Saints running it back. I posit to you guys that the 2024 Saints might be the worst team in NFL history that decided to just completely run it back. Like, usually you win 5 games and your plan isn't like, let's bring back everyone. Like, let's change the coach, but that's just kind of a cosmetic thing, and I'm not really sure what his impact will be or what his vision is because everything else is the same. I'm going to make a list. This was inspired by them re-signing Jevon Johnson, their tight end. I was surprised he got $21.25 million guaranteed. You know, an up and down career, but certainly hasn't been too productive for them lately. Jevon Johnson going back to the Saints 3 years, like I said, $10 million a year. And then there was another restructure with Tyrann Mathieu.
Another restructure.
Okay.
The Saints?
Here we go.
And Chase Young, by the way, is going there.
Chase Young. Yeah. We heard that they were going to make some big moves in free agency. Reportedly, they were in on Charvarius Ward. It didn't happen. They were in on a couple other guys. And yeah, other teams could spend more than they could because they don't have all the cap space. And so what do? They give Chase Young. They bring back Chase Young for a ton of money. They bring back Jevon Johnson. Here are the players that they restructured over the last handful of days.
Oh, man.
Cesar Ruiz, Carl Granderson, Kalen Saunders, Pete Warner, Demario Davis, Derek Carr, Eric McCoy, and then Ryan Ramczyk. That's kind of an accounting move because he's retiring. But I think any other team that was actually starting over would have said goodbye to half or most of those players. That's what you see usually when like a new staff comes. But it's not a new staff. It's Mickey Loomis who has all of his guys and is just like, he's just going to stick with it. And I know that it's only day 2. They're going to add some more pieces. They'll have the draft.
They just did. According to Ian Rappaport, our insider, Justin Reed to the Saints, 3 years, $31.5 million.
That's about the salary I think they could go to. It's funny when I saw a Debo leave for that money, I'm like, oh yeah, the Saints couldn't pay that. So that's a good move. Like I like that they are trying to add, but in the aggregate, they're kind of just running it back. I'm surprised Justin Reed didn't do better in this safety market where a lot of safeties got paid, but he is, on his, 3rd contract. So sometimes those guys don't get quite as much. 22.5 fully guaranteed. I like that signing. So good job, Saints.
Yeah, Justin Reed's one of my favorite players in the league, and certainly one of my favorite safeties to watch. I really did like this signing. Everything else is meh with the Saints right now.
I know.
Right. I love this.
Them to be boring. I hate when the Saints are boring.
I'm totally with you. And it's like Kellen Moore, we'll have to see with Kellen Moore, but it just feels like, oh, Kellen Moore's there. But it's just the Saints from last year and the year before pretty much running it back. we run it back every Tuesday. Although Colleen won't be here next time around, but we're gonna try as
Summer
much
of Connie starting.
as what we can.
See you next Tuesday.
See you
Yes.
next Tuesday. That's the
Taking
British
my dad
version.
and my sister to Healdsburg.
Ooh, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's like a little wine town.
Healdsburg?
Oh yeah,
Oh.
that's great.
Yeah, my
That would
dad
heal me.
really wants to go. So
Oh.
I think I've been to a wedding there. It's a beautiful place. And I do like, by the way, Justin Reed's a Louisiana native. Seems like the Saints can only get Louisiana natives right now. Jevon Gotcha wanted to be traded there. Just look at how his last name ends. Like, he should be a New Orleans Saints, Jevon Gotcha and Justin Reed. So that's their market. There's a lot of Louisiana players like Tyrann Mathieu just want to go there because New Orleans is awesome. Just a couple other items we missed earlier, by the way. Christian Fulton is going to the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. I like that move. They know ball. For $15 million guaranteed, like a little cheaper, but they're very good at making water out of wine with cornerbacks. And then I saw Puka Nacua is switching his number from 17 to 12 in deference to Davante Adams.
I don't know that deference is the right word. I hope he got the bag, first of all, for doing this. But second of all, to pay tribute, someone was gonna change, right? Someone was gonna have to change. I have no doubt that Davante maybe, offered the first initiated the talks on this. He's been 17 obviously for a lot longer. Puka Nacua wore 12 in high school, wore 12 in college. It is a tribute to his siblings, all raised by a wonderful single mother. And so I get the speciality of it. It also means for the Rams, hey, go buy a bunch of more
that's so
new
true.
jerseys, which they love that you can jersey change now.
That's right. So you can get your money back for the Nacua 17s, because he literally was on a podcast, the St. Brown Brothers podcast, and they brought this up to him. It must have been since Sunday, and he said he wouldn't take less than $2 million. I think he was maybe kidding. Maybe. I don't know. They brought it up and he's like, man, I wouldn't do that for under $2 million or something like that. That's a lot of money.
He had a chain ready, and it is absolutely diamond encrusted. It's a number 12. So I wonder if this is I suspect, this is not reported. I wonder if Davante is over in Japan right now. I wonder if he sweetened the pot a little bit with this incredible number 12 chain.
I love that.
I need to see the negotiations. I need the receipts. I would like to read the text messages because I'm sure this is being done over text at this point if he's in Japan.
Yeah.
I need to know the details.
Now, Puka Nacua is making a good living. He's making $1 million this year. But compared to Davante Adams and the money he's made in his career, Puka Nacua's entire rookie contract, I think, is about $4 million, which, again, great money for an average person. Absolutely brutal that you're making 1/10 as much as like your number 4 receiver on your own team for now, but he will get that money sooner than later. But this is a nice little, advance.
This was also brought up on a previous show that you did, Greg, but really sneaky smart move for the Rams to get the Garoppolo signing done after the Davante Adams signing.
Oh my God.
It is really funny because just thinking about it, they'll know that this will be a thing, and they'll probably make light of it in the media, but it still is a little funny.
Sean McVay is the ultimate I can fix him coach with all things. So
wow, guys, enjoy the final hours of the legal tampering.
Yes, we will. We are doing daily shows all week long. I'm going to be back on Wednesday and Thursday with Shook and Patrick Claybon, but thin slice of heaven having you guys here. Also, got to be back on Friday, by the way. Change in schedule. Doing 40s and free agents with Daniel Jeremiah, our new weekly show.
I liked it.
He's away this week, so don't feel bad about missing a couple days.
I'll call in.
I mean, look, when Jeremiah's on vacation during free agency, football's back.